Welcome to the Personal Tanya. Today is the fifth day of Shvat, and we're starting chapter 20 in the Tanya. What we've been learning thus far in the Tanya is the incredibly powerful impact of the natural hidden love that emerges from our godly soul when we're faced with a test of faith. When we are forced to repudiate our faith, it's then that the depths of our godly soul is unleashed in the most powerful way, a way that's so powerful that it automatically allows us to master all of our behaviors in thought, in speech, and in action. The problem is that power of the hidden love only comes to the fore when we're faced with a test of faith. What the Tanya is out to do today, in the next 2-3 chapters really, is to weaponize this consciousness by allowing us to reinterpret all sins, large and small, as idolatrous. Because if we were able to see any sin, even the tiniest sin, as an act of idolatry, as a test of faith, then we would be able to unleash the hidden love every single time we're faced with a choice. And thus, we would be able to weaponize our consciousness for the shortcut method to self-mastery, to be able to master our behavior in thought, speech, and action, allowing it to be consistent with the desires of the godly soul and never those of the animal soul, allowing us to maintain the status of the Beinoni, which is the purpose of the book of Tanya, to be the Jew that manages to control, to keep his animal soul at bay at all times. The way that we do this in today's Tanya is quite fascinating. It's based on the fact that we know that when God gave the Torah to the Jewish people 3,337 years ago, in the year 2448, since the creation of the world, God gave the 10 commandments to the Jewish people at Mount Sinai, but only the first 2 commandments were heard directly from God. Only the commandment Anochi, which is monotheism, and the second commandment, which is La Yiyalecha, which is the prohibition against idolatry. The first commandment was an active commandment to believe in one God. And the second commandment was a passive commandment, not to serve idols. The book of the Zohar, which is the foundational text of Kabbalah, and the Shalom, which is another text upon which the Tanya is based, bring out an amazing observation. As they point out that the reason why only these 2 commandments were heard directly from God and no others is because these 2 commandments contain all the other commandments. There are 613 commandments in the Torah. All of them are incorporated in these 2, in monotheism and in idolatry specifically. All the action mitzvahs, which are 248 commandments, are extensions of the first commandment, Anochi, the commandment to believe in one God, monotheism. And all the 365 passive mitzvahs are contained and extensions of idolatry, the prohibition to serve any other idols. How does this work? What does that even mean? We can only understand this by first reinterpreting our perception of reality. We need to understand monotheism. What does it mean that there is only one God? What does it mean, the unity of God? Chassidus Tanya teaches us that to believe in one God does not mean that there is only one God. That's obvious that there is only one God. The novelty of the commandment of the first commandment of the 10 commandments, the novelty of the belief in one God being a mitzvah is not that there's only one God, but that there is only one being in existence. Nothing else exists other than God. There is no world. There is no creation other than God. Only God exists. Not that God is the only God, but that God is the only being in existence. Now, the reason for this is a very profound and beautiful meditation, which is a very profoundly deep idea developed in the second part of the book of Tanya, which is the gates of unity and faith. But it's contained in miniature form in chapter 20 and 21 of Tanya, of the first part as well. It's what I call the doctrine of perpetual creation. You see, Tanya, based on the Torah, tells us that God didn't just create the world 5,785 years ago and then call it a day. No, God is involved in creating the world perpetually at every single moment in time. It's not that God could have created the world and then just gone to do something else, but rather that God needs to consistently create the world at every single moment in time. Just like a television screen. If your television screen is connected to the power, you'll have the visual on the screen. But the moment you pull the plug, there is no power and the screen goes dark. Such is the world. That only as long as electricity is flowing from God into the interface, which is this world, are we able to see the world. But the moment that God stops flowing energy, creative energy, perpetual creation into the world, then it simply ceases to exist. Based upon this doctrine of perpetual creation, it turns out that there's a cause and the effect. The cause is God, and the effect is the world the way we know it. But essentially, because the cause is creating the effect at every moment in time, because the world is constantly being created at every single moment in time. Therefore, only the cause is fundamental, and the effect is merely tangential because the effect is entirely dependent upon the cause. And this is how we're starting to build our redefining our perception of reality. Instead of saying that there is a world and I'm not sure if there's a God, we're flipping it over. We're saying there's a God. The only thing that exists is the cause. The question is now, is there an effect? And this is the meditation that we Jews think about every time we say Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael is the fundamental prayer of our faith. The declaration, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. We're not saying that there's only one God. We're saying that there's only one being in existence. Everything else is tangential to the existence of God. And with this foundation, we're going to inch our way forward to redefining our perception of reality, allowing us to understand why monotheism is the foundation of all the positive mitzvahs, action mitzvahs, why idolatry is the foundation of all passive prohibitions. And hence, we'll be able to reach a point that we'll be able to see how every single sin, large or small, benign, seemingly benign or egregious, is essentially an act of idolatry. And once we've reached that point, we will have weaponized our consciousness to be able to unleash the hidden love at any time that we have a spiritual decision to make, whether it's large or small. In tomorrow's Tanya, we'll dive deeper into the actual energy of creation, realizing that God creates the world perpetually through a voice-activated interface. And when we understand that there's a voice-activated interface, the profound implications to the truth of our existence are amazing. So that's for tomorrow, but for today, that's a wrap. Let's try to apply. You can do this.